This 2021 Mercedes E-Class starts at $55,000, but it only costs around $20,000 for Mercedes to make this vehicle. This difference between selling price and cost to build is similar across all car manufacturers, from Toyota to Ferrari. But no manufacturer is making tens of thousands on a $50,000 car. They actually make much less, oftentimes only up to a few thousand per vehicle, even for higher-end models. This is because there are a lot of lesser-known costs aside from the materials and labor required to build the cars. By the time a car reaches the dealership lot, its price has nearly doubled from the original cost to produce, leaving only a small margin left for the manufacturer. Car manufacturers have perfected vehicle production, able to assemble a car in less than 12 hours at a scale of millions per year. A car worth $50,000 typically requires around $20,000 in raw materials and $8,000 in labor. The materials that make up a car include steel, iron, aluminum, plastic, rubber, and glass. This assortment of materials is not only costly but also extremely difficult to form into the thousands of complex components that make up a vehicle. Furthermore, expensive machines and specialized labor are required to assemble them into a functional car. Manufacturers spend hundreds of billions a year trying to perfect this process and lowering the cost to make each vehicle. The modern production process is the reason cars are even remotely affordable. Without it, even a $20,000 car would cost tens of thousands more. Car companies don't produce millions of cars a year because they are making excessive amounts of money. They do it because they have to if they want to stay in business. It's nearly impossible to produce vehicles at a small scale, unless they are highly specialized and sold at an ultra-high premium like Rolls-Royce. Car manufacturing is one of the most expensive forms of business, but the more cars a company can produce, the cheaper the production becomes. Large car manufacturers are able to spread the extremely high costs of production over a larger amount of vehicles, whereas small companies are forced to buy the same expensive materials, machines, and labor for a small portion of vehicles that do not meet the costs required to make them. Large companies get discounts on bulk material orders, use machines and labor at their maximum efficiency, borrow money at better rates, and sell more cars in a shorter amount of time. The scale required to achieve these cost savings is obtained through highly optimized assembly lines. Production begins with the vehicle's chassis, which goes down the assembly line as components are installed into it. Suspensions, gas tanks, axles, wheel drums, and braking systems are some of the first components installed. Heavier objects such as the engine and transmission are installed next, with the help of precisely calibrated machinery. On a separate assembly line are the vehicle bodies. Metal panels are first welded together and bolted to the car's floor pan. This portion of the assembly is carried out fully by robots because of their ability to pick up and load 100-pound panels and to precisely weld them within a thousandth of an inch variance. Body components including doors, hood panels, fenders, and trunk lids are then installed, the assembly now being aided by people to help fit the various parts. That quickly, the body is ready for paint. It first receives an undercoat of primer to which the top coat of colored paint adheres to. Colored paint is then applied by robots programmed to disperse the exact amounts to specific areas so that each vehicle is consistent all around. The painted shells then arrive at a brightly lit room where inspectors examine each exterior for any defects. After the car passes inspection or its defects have been repaired, it proceeds to the interior assembly area where workers assemble nearly all of the components you see inside of a car. Wiring systems, gas pedals, dash panels, carpeting, and glass are all easily installed with the help of specialized tools designed for each task. Once the interior is finished, the body assembly line meets the chassis production line that was running in parallel the entire time. The chassis is slowly lifted into the body and workers bolt the two together. The car then receives its final components including a battery, tires, engine coolant, and gasoline. The finished car then goes to a final inspection where its engine, lights, horn, and tires are inspected. After just 12 hours, the car is ready to be sold and delivered to a dealership. Car manufacturers sell large amounts of cars to dealerships at discounted prices, but still enough to profit on each vehicle. A $50,000 car would likely be sold by a manufacturer to a dealership for around $45,000 as part of a bulk order. Dealerships present the cars on their lot and sell to consumers for a higher price, usually 10 to 15% higher than what they bought it for. After any additional features and price negotiations, a car that was produced for $25,000 can easily sell for over $50,000. But even with such low production costs relative to the final price, car manufacturers are still only profiting a few percent on each vehicle. Manufacturers still have to pay significant amounts for things like developing new models, safety testing, advertising, and required regulatory tests. These expenses make up around 30% of the remaining cost per car and leaves only a few $1,000s of profit per vehicle. Such a small profit on each vehicle leaves car manufacturers with very little room for error in their production process, and is another reason as to why they have to produce so many cars. To reduce the amount of issues in this process, an extensive amount of planning is done before production even begins. New models have to be designed each year to not only meet customer demands, but also the highly standardized production lines. They must be designed in a way so that millions of components can be produced consistently and that they can easily be assembled without the need for new tools. The thousands of components used in a car also need to be tested, packaged, and shipped to assembly plants on a day-to-day basis, creating even more logistics challenges. Each of these components are carefully inspected and tracked throughout the entire production process. If there's a defect in one of the components, manufacturers will immediately know whether it's a single component or an entire batch. Since they only ordered parts for one day and discovered the step the error occurred at, production can be paused to reduce loss until the error is fixed. Production lines also require planning and constant monitoring so that they are operating at their maximum efficiency. If required production levels fall below their efficient rate, machines and workers are idle, which slows down the entire line, causing a loss of money by the minute. If the rate goes too high, machines and workers must work more, and maintenance will not be able to keep up, causing more breakdowns and higher costs of production. All of this is necessary to keep up with the consumer demands and offer a variety of vehicle options at a reasonable price. But operating at such a large scale with such extreme standards requires hundreds of billions of dollars a year, which is why it's nearly impossible for a new car manufacturer to form, and why only a few companies make most of the world's cars. There are, however, manufacturers that don't operate by this model, and you can see it reflected in their price. Luxury or performance manufacturers like Lamborghini, for example, only produce a few thousand cars a year, but the average price is well over six figures. Even though car prices may seem deceiving, they are actually reasonable, whether you are buying a $20,000 Toyota or a $200,000 luxury car. Mass production is the main reason people are even able to buy cars, but it's one of the most complicated systems in business, requiring flawless execution each step of the way.